Welcome to Blame the Funnel. Peter Sandin and we are here to help you improve your sales and marketing funnels. Today, we start with a record-breaking funnel that made 103 million in revenue, probably something like 50 million in net take home for Mr. Alex Hormozi. Kudos to him. He broke records, records in volume, records in effort, records in the amount of attention that he got. I was on my canoe with my 3 kids and I was just having fun on the Mediterranean. And then I come home and I get 7 emails on that day from Alex. 7 emails. Hey, Simon, we're live. Hey, Simon, this is. And then I get one from Lila, his wife. Hey, Alex is live. And so I felt a little bit of FOMO, a little bit. I got so curious that I made a note. I said, oh my God, we have to study this funnel. This got a lot of people's attention. It got my attention. And so I called Mr. Funnel King, Peter Sandin, and said, Peter, let's pick apart this funnel. Thanks, Peter, for doing this.
Of course. I think it's a very interesting one, even though the funnel itself is kind of standard. It's just done really, really well at a very, very large scale.
That's probably lesson number 1. You can make 100 million with very boring, old school, proven methods. You don't need to reinvent anything if you just do it well. And we will cover in the next half an hour, we will cover the pricing structure, the pricing tiers that Alex used. How did he price each piece? How did he test the creatives, the ads, the content? What was the process? What did he do during the webinar, in preparation of the webinar and after the webinar? And how can you apply this to your business if you don't have millions in ad spend like all of us? So how can you apply this to your actual small team, middle team, even if you're a solopreneur? How can you apply this to your business? That's the 8 things we want to look at. But first of all, what was your overall impression? Were you surprised by it?
Not really surprised. I mean, he is excellent at what he does. He's very smart. Nothing to take away from him. What I thought was amusing was the idea that he's doing something that almost every New York Times bestseller already does, but they do it behind the scenes. And Alex was just like, "This is what I'm doing." Uh, as in, like, the way that you get on top of all the bestseller lists generally is that you get companies to order a bunch of books, not really because they want the books, but because they want you to come and speak at their event or something. So instead of giving you a speaker's fee, you tell them to buy $100,000 worth of books. So Alex sold up to, I think, $250,000 packages of books. But I mean, no one ordered that many books because they wanted that many books. They ordered them because they wanted the bonuses that came with the books. But yeah, it's I mean, very, very well executed, and it's something that everyone has already been doing, just not as openly. So yeah, kudos to him.
Those must be amazing bonuses. What were the bonuses in the beginning?
I don't know what was the very last bonus. I think the $250,000 one, if I understood correctly, was a one-on-one day with him or something like that, plus probably something else, I don't know. But the initial $6,000 package that was 200 books, again, I refuse to believe almost anyone would have bought that because of the books. It had the what he called playbooks, I think, for different specific business needs. There was an AI. There was some, if you ordered immediately live, you got another instruction manual on how to do a launch. There might have been one more thing, I don't remember, but
Let's
yeah,
jump into
it's
it.
a clever way to have massively inflated number of book sales, even though my rough guesstimate would be that less than 20,000 people bought a book. I might be
Let's
wrong, but that would be my guess.
Yeah, let's break it down bit by bit. We promised we would pick it apart. And so let's start with the pricing structure. And you don't have to take notes while you're listening or watching this. We can send you the link. We will put the link in the description so that you can have the whole written article, including how this applies to your business. So if we go to the pricing structure, The first one was $30 for the book itself. And as you say, that's not gonna excite anybody. But then he had a 6K offer, the bundle offer, and he didn't call it buy 200 books. He made it exciting for people. That's what you are describing. And one part of the excitement was it was a donation. You donate. So when you donate, you have impact, right? You are leading something somewhere. And he turned it around. We have to look deeper into this. How do you turn something around from buy something to become the sponsor of something, become the driver of something? So it was a donation, and he had an advisory package on top of that of $18,000. And then there was a secret 100,000 tier something, ultra premium, that I can't even remember. Can you remember what it was? Something like a one-on-one.
No, I know that I'm pretty sure there was a $250,000 version, but I
Mm.
don't know if there was something still between the 18,000 and the $250,000 one. And I imagine the $250,000 one was probably limited to, I would guess, 10 people or something like that.
And he reframed, so the psychology is he reframed those 200s. You are not buying 200 books, you are funding entrepreneurial education by donating 199. And so that was one of the mechanisms that made it more interesting than rather, why should I own 200 books more? I have so many books already. But no, now I am part of a movement of something that's educating, that's improving my surroundings. Pretty smart.
I think this is one of the things where we disagree a little on how impactful it was. I don't put as much impact on it. I somehow don't think that it made such a big difference. I think it made a difference, just not that big of a difference. To a few
So
people,
why
a big
did
difference, I'm
people,
sure, but in general, yeah, I don't know.
why do people buy 200 books?
Because they wanted the bonuses. They could not care less about the 200 books, is my premise.
Oh, then
It's
we
a
have to
nice
look at these
little tiny
bonuses.
bonus on top of the actual things they're buying, which were the technically the bonuses. But it is clever to flip it around, that you sell the thing that no one really wants, so that, and then you give away free the things they actually want, which is one of the good, like it is a proven way to structure a good offer. And again, I'm not sure I'm right. You might be right, but my assumption is that the framing of donations is not really a big driver of impact here, but rather that you're paying for things you don't really care about so that you get the incredibly valuable things you really do want, all the bonuses, the playbooks and whatnot.
That is true because 95% of the time, and we will see this later when we look at during the webinar, he wasn't talking about the book. He was 95% of the time, he was talking about the bonuses. And the bonuses were physical playbooks that he framed as this is what we use internally. That's our SOPs. Here's the marketing SOP, the sales SOP, the client delivery SOP. And he framed it as you can have what's actually happening in our team, and you can have that, and you can apply that to your team. And it's a printed version of our SOPs. So those were the bonuses, and he were really putting the emphasis on the bonuses rather than on the books. But does it work already because right now we are pre-event, and he's saying, hey, come to my event. My book is coming out. Right now, we don't have the bonuses yet. They will see the bonuses during the webinar. What can a bonus be when you just send an email? Hey, guys, there will be my book. There will be an event. Now buy 200. What can you tell them? It's hard to excite people at this stage, right? But let's look into it.
Yes and no. So he has a massive audience. So for a lot of his audience, they just assume that when Alex does something, it's going to be good. So when he says that he has great bonuses, they are going to assume it's really good. He used also the idea of if you stick to the end, you're going to get this massive free thing. In this case, he gave away, I think the audiobook version was available and something. But
That was a
yes,
good
like
one.
I'm
He
not saying
said,
that it didn't make a difference. It's a clever way to frame things, but I don't think it made very big difference in terms of sales. But this is something that is well tested and known that if you have a typical online marketing style stack offer where you have the main component and then you have bonuses, it is often good to do it so that you spend surprisingly little time on the main offer and then surprisingly much time on all the bonuses, even though technically they're supposedly free. But often that's because the way that you've structured a webinar in this case is that you've already made people believe the value of the main offer with the content of the webinar before you get to the sales pitch. And then the sales pitch is kind of like just saying, so all the stuff we talked about, you're going to get in this main offer. But on top of that, and then spend 30 minutes on whatever is on top of it. And
yes,
he
his
executed
framing
it
was,
excellently.
if you stay until the end, you will get something that is worth less than a Bitcoin and more than an NFT. That spoke the language of his people, who are these kind of millennials. And on the other side, it made it interesting because it's new. Nobody ever said that. That was the only sentence that I did not hear 100 times already in the last 10 years in direct marketing. So that was the only, if you want, unique language and unique thing about it. And it made it interesting. You didn't know what it is, but you did know, oh, something's going to happen at this event. What I find interesting is how he tested the ads. He started with his framework of 70% scaling the ads that are working, 20% testing new concepts, and then 10% trying something wild. He had these green people, a pattern interrupt. He had this book which was bigger than life, right? The biggest artifact I've ever seen. So you felt this 10%. He was trying out things that were very different, kind of um, attention stop, pattern interrupts, and attention grabbers. How many teams do you know that apply such a framework or other A/B testing frameworks right now?
Well, I know quite a few because I work with them. But generally speaking, let's say before I work with them, not many. And it's kind of surprising how many companies still somehow make a profit with advertising. But often what ends up being, like what ends up happening, and kind of everyone who does a lot of advertising knows this, almost no advertisement, apart from maybe some retargeting ads, almost no ad is going to work very well for many years in a row. There's the odd exception, but it's very uncommon. So what ends up often happening for companies that don't do continuous testing is that they have their ads and then they just start working worse and worse and worse and worse over time until they're so bad that they're forced into creating new ones, and then they're screwed because it takes them potentially a long time to come up with new winners. So hence this, whether it's 70-20-10 or 65-15 or 65-25-10 or whatever, but usually the 10% for the odd ideas is where most companies go. It's just good advertising practice to do that. I think a funny story about this is I think it's bees, but I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's bees that always send roughly 10% of their scouts to sort of random directions just to see where are the new sources of food, so that when the existing sources of food inevitably will eventually somehow no longer produce food, they already have new sources. It's kind of the same idea here.
And I love this, and I wish more teams would do that. We said in the beginning that actually he was doing proven things, old school things, and it's true. But one thing was surprising for me. So you go to this webinar and you think, okay, it's a short webinar. Instead, it was a marathon. I have never seen a webinar over 3 days. First day was 7 hours, day two, 6 hours, and day three was 4.5 hours. And there was an extra VIP that you and I have watched later on. I don't know if this was a fourth one or one of those. The content in there was, so what happened during that session? There was an opening hour with authority building, and then there was a teaching phase where he delivered value, and he is great at that. I love how he teaches sales concepts, marketing concepts. He makes it easy to understand, and they're really, really valuable. Then he had some social proof with client success stories, model breakdowns. He did then reveal the offer, 90 minutes of unboxing and really visual stacking, the physical things in his hand, and he was showing them. He was opening up those books, those playbooks. He literally he had them physically in the room and in his hands. And then there was mystery guests, which made everything more interesting. He said in the very beginning, in the pre phase, he said, we will have mystery guests. It's going to be amazing. And so that was another 2-3 hours with guests, and then Q&A and closing with the last sales push. That was the structure of it. And this is very old school. Nothing new here. Something that you and your AI can come up with pretty easily. Go ahead.
I think there's a couple interesting notes to make about it, though. One is that something that is becoming more and more obvious is that the more time people spend with you, the more they trust you. So a simplistic example is that if people only ever hear from you once a week via email, they trust you probably less than if they watch every other day a YouTube video of you. Well, if they spend 7 hours with you on a webinar, they trust you more than if they would have spent only 2 hours on a webinar with you. So the idea of these like longer and longer webinars has been happening, I think, over almost the last 10 years or so. Initially it was that 60 minutes was kind of the standard. Then some people started doing 90 minutes. Then there were the people who did like 3 or 4 hour webinars and saw better and better results. I've never seen anyone do 7 hours or 9 hours. There was the VIP stream version of the first day, which was 9 hours and 10 seconds, 9 hours and 10 minutes. But I think that's part of it. I'm sure there's also the idea that, well, everyone gets a chance to join live, even if it's a different time zone and such. But the idea of going really long is again, it's not new. He just did it kind of more extreme and extremely well. One other thing I thought I would mention, I don't know why, but our timestamps have nothing to do with each other. For me, when I looked at it, about 2 hours and 25 minutes into it, they went into the mystery guests. And until then, he hadn't really taught anything. Nothing. Like you could condense everything he taught into like 3 sentences. Instead, he was talking about in a very broad picture of what you should focus on, what kind of problems you might have, and proving that he has solutions to them. And I don't doubt him. He probably really does have solutions to them and you can buy them. But it's interesting that you can do it, you can build the trust people need to buy from you in 2 radically different ways. One is what he did, which is just prove that he knows it and he can teach it, which is, I assume, true. The other is the more common one, which most people do, which is they teach to prove that they know what they're talking about. Because if I help you understand something better than you did before, especially if you've studied before and tried to understand it and failed and no one else has been able to explain it, then you probably assume that I know what I'm talking about and that I can help you more. So that's the way that most webinars work, but Alex has so much just proof of what he's done that he didn't need to do basically any of that, at least not before the mystery guests and all that. But in the first 2.5 hours, I don't think he taught anything, really. Or if he did, you could definitely condense it to 5 minutes or less, maybe 5 sentences or less. So anyway, you need to have the proof. You need to have the trust of the audience. Not necessarily proof, but the trust. And you can build it in many different ways. And he did it excellently, but not in a way that most companies or most people can do, at least not very effectively.
The event didn't start during the event. It started 6 weeks before when he started announcing the event. So July 2, I got some emails already. hey, there will be this event, we're coming out with a book, and then also some big names um, that would build up authority. Then July 6 to 20, mystery building with these cryptic teasers about prices. If you stay up till the end, something that's worth less than a Bitcoin, more than an NFT. There will be bonuses. He started talking about the bonuses. And then August 1 to 15, daily escalation, uh, urgency, social proof, limited time, if you join early, if you buy 200. And then I, let me share screen. I come back from my canoe and I had in 24 hours 7 emails in my inbox. We're live in 3 hours, Simon. Then we're almost live. We're live now. Then a personal email from Lila. Alex is killing it right now. You have to join us. Come in. Real-time event highlights with milestones, complete bonus tech breakdown. By the way, I loved the live tracker of how much they're selling right now. That was my favorite part, real-time dashboards. That's my love language. And people love it, right? It's like Duolingo, it's gamified. It's like you're playing Angry Birds. You see what's happening in real time. You do something and you see, it's much more fun, right? It's like a sports event. Um, Complete bonus tech breakdown, and then 60 minutes left, final urgency. Come on, come on, come on. Otherwise, you are missing this. Pretty good. Now, let's go to the dark side of things, because we're marketers. And if I do this in the US, people love it. 7 emails in one day. Now, you are in Finland. How, how, how does a European audience experience 7 emails in a day in your experience?
There's certainly a difference. It's sometimes as drastic or even bigger than people expect, but sometimes it's not as big. But yeah, you would generally assume a much higher percentage of unsubscribes and spam complaints if you send that many emails. There are ways to mitigate it with, I'd say, 2 or 3 different things. So one is that you send more emails to the most engaged people. So if someone hasn't engaged with any of your emails in a month, then you don't send 7 emails to them in a day, you send 1 or maybe 2. If on the other hand, someone opens the first email and they've opened every email from you the last year, then yeah, you can send them probably 17 emails in a day, and they probably won't mind too much. The second thing is the content of the emails. So I have, for example, gotten many emails back from my own audience when I've done very, on my scale, aggressive email marketing in terms of quantity, which could be like up to 3 emails in a day over a week. For example, there could be 15 emails maybe on average or something. That's like, I almost never do that. I usually send 1, maybe 2 emails in a week. So comparatively massive and aggressive. But if you make every email actually interesting and useful and somehow entertaining and valuable, people don't mind. It's hard to do, but if people start to feel like, oh, you're just shoving me to a webinar, yeah, they're going to get pissed real soon. But if it feels like, oh, it was cool to read this email and you told me about the webinar, like no one minds. So a big difference in how you do it. And the third thing that can help, very varied and mixed results, but having a link at the end that says that, hey, if you're not too interested in this thing that we're now promoting, click here and we won't send you any emails about it, or we won't send you more than a couple of reminders or something. So I don't know if it's really worth doing because the results really vary a lot, but I've seen many cases where it was clearly worth it. We got very solid conversion rates, but still almost no spam complaints, even though there was pretty aggressive emailing. I mean, not my own, but like with a company that would send not 7 maybe, but 5 emails in a day. So if you just get people who are most annoyed off the list that you send a ton of emails to, you can mitigate most of the issues. So yeah, I mean, there's ways to make that sort of emailing work more consistently and sort of safer, but we can obviously see that you don't have to do that and still get great results. So it's kind of how do you want to do it and how much do you want to care about the downsides, Because if you're just pushing people to buy something, you're probably going to make quite a few sales. You're just going to lose a portion of the audience while doing it. But do you care if you made a lot of sales? It's up to you.
It was kind of a burn the list intensity. Even for
Yeah.
a mainly North American audience, this was like, okay, let's sell as much as possible independently if I lose the trust and I lose the people. So in 100% of all the projects that I've been involved, we always went the other route. Whatever happens, you want the list to be nurtured, to be stronger. And if we can make a little bit more sales at the expense of eroding trust, we would never do that. Unless, maybe it's a turnaround situation, but we never had to put the dial onto full intensity and burn the list kind of intensity. It would be interesting if it actually happened, if he burned the list, or if he had different results. I don't know his unsubscribe rates. Um, I know that I didn't read them all, but I saved them because I will study them later on. I preferred to play tennis and go on my canoe on that day. But I know that later on in a few weeks, when a client needs some very good funnels, I will look at them and we will look at them together for inspiration and for learnings because they obviously worked.
Well, we don't know if the emails worked actually. They might have
Overall,
been terrible. We don't know if they worked. This is
overall,
one of these.
yeah.
Yeah, we can assume they worked pretty well, but this is one of the things that I don't expect this to apply to Alex because he really does things better than most. But there's been a lot of these over the years, big online launches where they make a ton of sales, not $100 million, but a lot of sales. And then everyone's gushing over how well they did things. And then occasionally I get to see the actual numbers and I look at it as these kind of suck. You had this many people register and you only made this many millions. Like if you had the like typical conversion rates that I would think are good, you would have made 4 times as many. You can argue that part of that it might be that a huge audience isn't as warm and such, but like just because they make a lot of money doesn't necessarily mean their conversion rates are good, which would mean they actually do things well. It could just be that, well, he had what, 22,000 affiliates promoting this to their audiences of potentially tens of millions of people more or less interested. And he had a launch list of what, I don't know, he spent 4 million or 5 million on advertising. So like, we have to kind of also remember that, yes, he did things very well, but we don't know if every element actually was nearly as effective as it could be. It might have been, but we don't know because we didn't see, he didn't share, obviously, he couldn't share statistics on how well the email marketing is working because that was something that happened live. But given how much he tests things, I would assume that his email marketing is pretty effective consistently without burning his list too much.
Now we shared a
But
ton
doesn't mean that
about,
everyone can model it directly and expect similar results.
yes, and people can go and read all the details and read all the additional facts and figures that we've put together from the document. Right now, I'm curious, what do you think? How can people apply some of these parts to their much smaller campaigns right now?
I think one of the most interesting things that is very applicable pretty much directly, or a couple things. One is in the advertising. So I assume that Alex shared the actual truthful numbers. I don't have any reason to assume they weren't real. And he said that, well, he spent, I don't remember, was it 4 or 5 million on advertising? But he didn't risk 4 or 5 million. He risked the first couple days worth of budget, which was like 20 something thousand or 30,000, I don't remember, each day. And by the third or fourth day, he was profitable with advertising because he was pre-selling the book and he was making enough on the front end with the initial book sale. And I imagine there were upsells right after the initial pre-purchase of a book offer, so that he was making profit from day one. and then he just reinvested those profits into advertising. And I assume he kept increasing the daily budget day after day after day without necessarily investing additional own money into it beyond the first 2-3 days. And that's something pretty much everyone can do. It's not always easy to do. You need to have a good way to monetize advertising very quickly. But there's this idea that I keep pointing out, which is that if there's this sort of a wheel of you put money into advertising, then you make profit, and you can invest that back into advertising. The faster you can rotate the wheel, the faster you can scale it up. Obviously, there's other limitations to scaling, both operational and scale, like channel-wise and such. But generally speaking, if you put advertising dollars in and don't expect to make a profit until a year later, you're turning this wheel extremely slowly. It's going to take decades to scale it up significantly. Whereas if you make a profit in the first 24 hours, or the first week, or the first month, or even the first 2 or 3 months, you see much, much faster growth without risk, like in meaningful ways increasing the risk. You always increase risks when you're doing it with bigger bets, but generally speaking, we can simplify and say that you're not increasing the risk. And that's something anyone can do, but it does require that you're good enough at creating offers that you can make people buy very quickly. That's, I think, a clever way for him to illustrate one of the key ideas of his book. But yeah, you should maximize I think he focuses on 30-day profits. I think he does it because, in his own words, you can always get an interest-free loan from a credit card company for 30 days. I don't usually look at it that way. I look at it based on company scale. Some companies need to make a profit much faster than others. In some cases, it's fine to wait for 2 months or 3 months or maybe even 6, but that's an exception. But yeah, I think that's one of the, I'd say, 3 really good ideas that everyone can take out of this webinar or this whole promotion.
A second one, and here's where you can find all the details. It's at thesalesshow.beehive.com is the full article with the full breakdown. The second thing that everybody can apply is the more time they spend with you, the more they trust you. And you can do that if you don't have an email sequence, a drip campaign, you can start having a drip campaign, like regular sharing what's going on, what's the next event, what you're working on, maybe things that you are doing that are not working. So because it's even more vulnerable and even more real, right? I tried this, it didn't work. Let's see what we come up with next. Not just happy peppy, but whatever the journey is, sharing the journey can be done with emails, can be done with video, even better, right? If you can show your expertise via video and maybe bring in experts, right? That is one way, very cost effective. You don't have to risk ad spend, because the smaller the budget, the less you should risk your capital. You should do it organically, right? Doing whatever you do, but doing it more in public. So that worst case, nobody watches it, but best case, that's your marketing piece right there, and it increases trust, but you didn't lose cash flow. You just lost.
And to add to this second point, I would also look at how he did the webinar 3 days in a row. They weren't quite as long as the first one, but not everyone's ever going to make it to your first webinar. You can offer replays, you can offer recordings, but generally you get much fewer people to those than just doing another live webinar, even if it is the very next day. Or if you do a 2-hour webinar in the morning, do it again in the afternoon, and you might get a new audience. But yeah, I agree. That's the second big point that I would take out of the whole launch.
The third one for me is leaderboards. If you can show the others, show the ecosystem. So for me, one of the fun things about that event was you would see also other people and who is connected with and who supports these ideas. And so that ecosystem makes it much more interesting. Oh, it's a community. It's actually a community of people all on this journey of entrepreneurship. Makes it much more interesting and makes it possible for the audience to to go from passive watching something to being actually part of something and being active part of something. So leaderboard is something that you can do with $0 spent. The smallest leaderboard that we have ever done is you do an email campaign. So the last book, Strategy Sprints, we had, can't remember, 25 partners promoting it via email. And then we had this leaderboard of that we would send to the partners. This was internals just to the partners and saying, hey, thank you, Rob, you just hit 1,200. And then they would see each other. Well, first of all, it's appreciation. Hey, I see that you did it. Thank you for doing it. I'm grateful. But then also there would be a little competition between the partners, because now, oh, I'm number 4, that guy's number 2, can I beat him? And then, hey, team, send another email, we have to become number 2. So there is an element of positive reinforcing competition in there, and it creates again a little community that is there, but it's not explicit. Now it's an explicit community. Those 20 partners, I'm sure, they have seen each other work in this project, and they will start the next project together and say, hey, I have my book launch coming up in 6 months. Do you guys want to do this thing there? And so it becomes a little movement, a little community that is temporary, but has also effects above and beyond that temporary situation. The second thing is, in the Sprint Club, we have these live dashboards. So there are quests. The quests are, for example, a 14 days prospecting challenge. Come on, guys, let's do some prospecting. We all hate it, but we all have to do it. So here is a helpful challenge for us to do. Every day we will do something with these prompts. And then you see on the leaderboard, oh, these people is active and active. And then your phone pings you and says, you are active 700 points, but Laura has 1,400 points. Now, maybe you don't care, but maybe you go like Duolingo and go, oh, okay, I want to be more active. So it can help remember people that they are in something, that they wanted to do something and they forgot to do something. So there is this element of nudging, but it's also seeing the others creates also connection. And I think people applying this, they can do it even if they have 5 partners that send emails. You can do that already, and sending those 5 back a real-time leaderboard of those 5 doesn't need to be huge, and it costs 0.
Yep, I agree. That's a good point, but it's not the third point I had in mind. The one that I was thinking of is upsells, and specifically having multiple and going high enough in pricing, because someone might buy the super expensive thing, but they're not going to buy it if you don't offer it. So I think Alex's upsells went all the way up to $250,000. So you would start by essentially buying a book, or in this case, 200 books at a time. And then ultimately you might buy 10,000 books at a time on the same day. The idea being that if you don't have upsells, you're probably leaving a lot of money on the table. Not in every case, but generally speaking, it's worth at least considering how you could add upsells and also go way more expensive than you would think is reasonable, because if you don't offer, no one's going to buy it. And also price anchoring, and there's other benefits to it, but that's something I think a lot of people keep missing in whether they're doing a launch or not. It works just the same way for all kinds of selling, and a lot of people seem to forget it. Downsells too, and so on, but upsells especially, I think, is something that people often don't do because they've only seen it done in a sleazy way, especially online. It doesn't need to be that at all. It can be extremely helpful, genuinely useful, something people like, even if they don't buy any of it. So do it that way.
What's an example of a non-sleazy upsell?
Well, the classic example everyone has used for the last, I don't know how many decades, including Alex himself in the book, is selling rental cars. So if you go and try to, like, you've reserved a rental car, they have a bunch of upsells, whether it's insurance or the late checkout, what is called like late return for the book, for the car, the day that the rental ends. The ability to not need to fill it with gas, but instead pay the rental company to do it, a tiny premium for it. I think Alex also used the example of like how they upsell the size of the car. There might be something else too. I never rent a car, so I don't remember, but that's the obvious example everyone always uses. Or the do you want fries with that? So like, it doesn't have to be a sleazy. The typical issue a lot of people have come across and why upsells I think have a bad rep, especially in online marketing types of circles, is that a lot of upsells have made people feel like the initial thing they bought wasn't enough, or that it won't work the way they expected it to work unless you buy the upsell. And this happens pretty easily. If you make people feel like they're buying a complete system, and then you tell them that, hey, do you want to buy this additional thing? And it's like, no, wait, I just thought I bought a complete system. Even if you never said it's a complete system, if people felt like it is, then they're going to be annoyed as soon as you offer them something more. But if it is something like, well, if you came to rent a car and they said that, well, renting the car is $100 a day, then if they say that, do you want insurance with it? It's like, okay, that's a natural thing. Yes, please. Or do you want the late return on it? It's an obvious thing. That's the same in hotels. Do you want the late checkout? So upsells can be genuinely helpful. Same goes with services, same goes with physical products, same goes every industry. You can come up with genuinely good upsells.
All right, guys, this was the first installment of Blame the Funnel. We are receiving your funnels. Thank you so much. We have received, I can't remember, a dozen of your funnels. We will work them every week. We will look at one of these funnels. If you want to grab the whole article, you can find it here at thesalesshow.beehive.com. It's the How Alex Hormozi's Funnel Made 103 Million. Thank you, Peter, for doing this, for starting this series with us. You can still send us even more funnels, either to Peter Sandin or to Simon Severino, and we will add them to the list of funnels that we'll look at, so that you don't have to blame the funnel, but actually enjoy the results of your funnel. Thanks, Peter. See you soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. See you next time.
Avoid trying to do thousands of things that doesn't work. We have 274 templates for your business success. Reach your ambitious goals with one-on-one sprint coach. We double your revenue in 90 days.
What if your business would run well even when you are on vacation? Discover how 1,600 business owners have regained their freedom using the Strategy Sprints blueprints. How they enjoy living their dream and watching their business scale. Get the exact checklists they use to go from stressed to fulfilled using the Strategy Sprints method. Order your copy of Strategy Sprints 12 Ways to Accelerate Growth for an Agile Business on Amazon today. And if you love it, leave us a review. For more information, head over